So we're going to look at owner financeable properties when they meet all our other criteria, and we'll consider owner financing if it's advantageous to us with any real estate. This has nothing to do with the bug allocation. Any real estate transaction, we should look at it this way. But we should immediately be skeptical that the reason they're doing owner financing is they can't get conventional or regular financing for the property. So they're targeting a specific segment of people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get a property at all. And if you're in that segment of society, it may be that you shouldn't be buying a property, secondary, primary, whatever, right now. You might be in a position where you should be waiting. And then there's just reasons that your credit looks bad or whatever, but you have plenty of money, you got plenty of income, and it's your only option. You're the person they're looking for. Know that you're going to be paying a premium on a property. Here's why I say that's the case. Let's say I own a piece of property and I want to sell it to you, and it's $200,000 for this piece of property. You can either go to the bank, get a mortgage, and I can get a check for $200,000, and I don't give a damn after that what you do. I don't care if a nuclear bomb goes off and blows you up. I don't care what happens. I got my $200,000. I can go do something else with it. But if I put you in a situation where you're paying me $3,000 a month, it's true I have cash flow, but I'm also at risk that at some point you're no longer going to be able to service that debt. I'm going to repossess the property. Depending on what state I am, that's easy or hard, but it's going to take 90 days to 6 months minimum, no matter where I am, for me to get that done. And if you're making attempts to pay, now I'm at a cash flow loss, but yet it gets harder to evict you off the property, to reclaim the property, resell the property, etc. So I would just want the money. And yes, if I have a lot of money and a lot of investments, having different cash flows like that is a good idea. Here's another reason, though, sometimes stuff gets put up for owner financing. They don't have clean title. They don't have a clean title. And that's why nobody can get financing on the property. Well, what I say about you should have an exit strategy, now you think about who are you going to sell the property to when you want to get out? Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because they're going to have to get financing from somebody. You can't own or finance it if you bought that property from me for $100,000, and you need to get the hell out, okay? And you want to go sell it to somebody, and you want to do owner financing for the same reason I did. Well, I'm not cool with that. You're the one who owes me money. You're going to have to come up with $100,000 to buy your freedom, pay down the last bit of your debt. Then you can do whatever the hell you want. So it makes exit strategies difficult as well. So the way I think owner financing works is when it's a straight land deal. A lot of times those are hard to finance. That's legitimate, right? So it's not some weird thing. You know you got a clean title. You make sure of that. You have the land appraised. It appraises at the right amount of money. And then owner financing just works. And it's something that's like a 3 to 6 year payoff term with no penalty for full early payoff. That's the terms you should negotiate in that situation. And the last is an all cash purchase. I've saved up my pennies like a good boy. This piece of property costs $70,000, a little cabin on it. I want it. I walk in with a briefcase of hundreds, or I sign a check, or I send the guy $70,000 worth of Bitcoin. He has his money, I have my house, and everything's paid for. That's a good deal if it doesn't take your cash down to nothing. Again, don't be afraid of debt on real property. As long as you know you can service the debt, you have a strong investment strategy and a strong exit strategy for the property. That's just flat out the way it's got to be. And I know this may not be, remember we put the bug out location on the shelf? You're like, man, this just sounds like good common sense real estate investing. It is. It is. You're buying real estate. You're not buying a bug out location. You're buying a piece of real estate, and one of the functions it serves is as a fallback location. So we need to be thinking about all these things going in. The next thing we need to be thinking about, and actually probably should be thinking about this first, is general comfort and buy-in for your family. So we get guys and they say, well, me and Bill, we're going to get us a deer lease and call it a bug out location, and we're going to have this beat up old little trailer on it we both sleep in and drink beer and fart and snore in and yell at each other for it, and we don't really give a damn the way things are, and we'll pee on a tree and poop in a hole in the ground, go shoot a couple deers every year. Well, then you have a deer lease. You have a deer lease, you don't lease, you own it. But what you don't have is a bug out location for your family, unless your family's okay with those living conditions, and most kids and women are not. You got to think about that. You really do. And what people think is, well, since I'm doing this, if we ever have to run off because the shit has hit the fan, well, then they'll just go and like it. Okay, what about the rest of your freaking life? What about the rest of your life? What about tomorrow? What about next week? What about next month? Wouldn't it be better that your family was like, this is pretty nice. I like it here, Dad. I want to come here and go fishing with you, Dad. Honey, this is beautiful. I'd like to come here on our anniversary one year. Spend a week just you and us alone, put the kids with grandma or whatever. That's what you're looking for in something like this. Something that your family is excited about. They want to be part of. Now, if you're single and you live alone, then think about your own comfort and needs. But life gets old in a tent fast. Trust me, you're listening to someone that at one time in my life, I lived in a GP medium tent with 7 other guys for 180 days straight, sleeping on a cot, living out of a footlocker. It gets old. At least we had a wooden floor. We lived in a little mountain town in Honduras, covered with dust and dirt all the time. And trust me, when I got back to Panama after that deployment and was sent back to my room I shared with one guy with an air conditioner and a wall locker instead of a foot locker and a proper bed, I slept really good for about a week. I mean, I barely made it to work for a week after I got back because all I wanted to do was sleep in a comfortable bed. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. So think about that with your plans as well, with your bug out location. Comfort and buy-in from both yourself and your family so you can actually enjoy it. And then start thinking along those lines about your structures, your amenities, your utilities. Right? These are important too. Off-grid may or may not be the way to go. Now, the beauty of off-grid is if you're truly off-grid, then if things go really wrong, you don't care. You've got everything you need. But it's expensive to go off-grid. It really is. I know you saw some guy bury a container home for $9,000 or whatever. In the end, when you start looking at all of the costs associated with off-grid living, it's more expensive than bringing a utility line in and plugging it in. It's more resilient. It's something I would love to do. And depending on your climate, it may or may not be practical. If you live in a state like Texas, where we routinely have temperatures over 110 degrees in the summer, unless you're able to somehow build an earth contact structure, it's probably not very practical because it's 1,000 degrees inside your house otherwise, and you probably want air conditioning. There's a reason every house down here has it. If you're living more in a mountainous state where you have your primary needs for climate control is heat, that's pretty easy to generate with burning stuff like wood. A little bit easier to do. So you have to balance the whole off-grid, completely sustainable thing with reality, balancing it back against comfort and buy-in from your family as well. So off-grid might be great. It really might. But you got to really look at the climate links there as a big piece of it. Off-grid and on-grid might be a better option. So it might make sense to put in solar, to put in wind, to put in rain catchment. But if you also have a well and you have rain catchment, then you have 2 as 1 and 1 as none. That's what we've done right here in our primary residence. I have 7,000 gallons of rain catchment and I'm adding more. It's pumped through a 12-volt pump that I can run off a car battery through a filtered system to make it potable if I want to drink it. I can use it for irrigation, I can use it for my animals, and I have a well. But if I lose power, I don't necessarily have to fire up a huge generator just to pump water out of my well. I can use that rain catchment system. And if we take it down to a point where we're out of water and rain's not coming anytime soon, if we have reserve fuel, and we always do, then we can fire up that well and we can refill it one time and go through another 7,000 gallons of water while we wait for more rain. That's 2 as 1 and 1 as none. They're not just, we don't only have 2 wells. We have 2 different methods of handling water. So a bug out location, it might make sense if you can get utilities to have them and then have redundancies that are secondary and off-grid. That usually works a lot better. Always know that raw land is going to be harder to purchase. A lot of people are out buying raw land today for bug out locations and taking the RV approach or the tiny house approach, and that's great. I love that approach. It makes it accessible to people that otherwise couldn't get a piece of land at all. But remember, it's much more difficult to get a loan on raw land from a bank, especially when you're looking for a low-interest, long-term loan to take advantage of taxes and easy servicing of the debt. So you're looking at much shorter financing terms, higher interest rates, or cash purchases, or you're looking at owner financing options, which we've already covered as not being the greatest in the world. So think hard before we go raw land. No, if you're going to do that, have a plan and know why you're doing it and keep the exit strategy, investment strategy, income strategy in mind when you do. And then a real quick lesson from the world of permaculture. When we evaluate a property from a permaculture lens, and we look at it as a permaculture designer, sustainable agriculture, regenerative agriculture, whatever you want to call it, we're going to look at water, access, structure. Even on raw land, where would water be? How can I retain it? How can I hold it? What are my access points in and out of the property? How does that make the property flow and work? And where are my structures, or where would I place my structures? If we do that, we get a very clear look at a piece of property so we can be methodical about our decisions.